to transformative action. So in 1980, Māori people thought that, well, the community had come together, tribal and elders were concerned about the Māori language and culture that was lost in the school. There were research that suggests that there was a big marginalisation within the school system between Māori kids and Pākehā, and transformative action was more like a resistant movement towards Pākehā domination. Therefore, they thought that by coming together before the 1980s to discuss the problem with the big drop of Māori students being underachieved, and they took the key elements of te kura kaupapa to initiate change and to address the problems with the schooling, whether they should bring up the cultural knowledge and the Māori language should be revived again.
I think that's where the Kohanga Reo Movement sort of has sprung from, hasn't it? Because part of the background to that is that when colonials came across, they took a lot of the land, and therefore Māori units fell apart, and so the learning of their culture and their language was broken up, and so they were on their own, and through that they lost a lot of their language. Yeah.
Which is, I guess, like if you look at the mainstream education system now, that's what they passed as kind of like what has made that underachievement, you know. You're not having enough teachers who are qualified in Māori language or Māori culture, or you haven't have enough Māori experience, you know. That's the downfall from that, as you said, the colonialism of the British movement into New Zealand. Like Edward Dury, she says that no matter how much you try and change something, if there's not enough, as you said, community behind it or anything like that behind it, are still going to fall short, you know, the process of bringing bilingualism into the mainstream education system. And that is what, you know, Kohanga Reo Movement was about, bringing that, making everybody feel equal, or making somebody feel equal within the system.
And you're right, because the Kohanga Reo Movement was a resistance against mainstream, and luckily they had enough community behind the idea of bringing Māori back into the mainstream, but also like creation of movement so that the next generations could actually work through. And the community was really important in the whole movement. And it wasn't just the public that were wanting to learn and generate that interest, but also organisations that came into the frame as well and helped to make that movement. So nobody actually worked alone. It was a real, you know, creative community.
That's also goes back to Wally Benedetto when he wrote about the Tūranga Waiwai, the Māori movement, where what is it, they invited the community, like people out in the the ministry, to come in and know what multicultural was, and that was like a big massive step in 1970, but in 1980 was what I guess they really put their foot down, didn't it?
And I mean, from that, like just saying, you know, made that international aspect of, you know, having all these other minority education groups or, you know, community groups come together and be like, you know, since somebody has taken a step forward of standing against what's been done within the education system for Māori, why not incorporate into our own education system? I mean, like we've read articles about things happening in Canada, in South Africa, you know, this broad aspect of one small program, such as the Kohanga Reo Movement, has, you know, impacted other communities. And I mean, even here within New Zealand alone, the Pacific Islanders and, you know, all these small little, you know, groups have come together and been like impacted by something that's really taken on quite an aspect of education.
And I guess it also helps the parents as well that were in the education system prior, you know, in the 50s, 60s, because they felt like that they lost a lot of their own language and culture, and the way they were discriminated or you know, stereotyped during that time. So the movement actually helped them re-educate and rethink about you know, mentally.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
You know,
Because a lot of them had to assimilate into you know, the New Zealand way of being, and of course, you know, with that assimilation you kind of lose who you are, and if you're taken away from the place where everything is held important for you, you know, it creates a different person, and sometimes that gets lost in the process, which is a shame, but that's just what happens.
I guess that's the good thing of having this, you know, this early childhood program. You know, it's, I mean, they say to educate somebody, it starts at home.
Yes.
But what happens when they step into society, you know? What do they do? Like, as you said, they face with all these things and they lose themselves. And, you know, I think starting with a young age, incorporating the saying, literally letting them know that Māori is your identity, is who you are, and your culture and your language, and all the experience you have been through being Māori should carry on through preschool, primary school, you know, secondary school, as well as university. I think with something so small, starting with an early education, you know, it has an impact. And I mean, as far as I know, from just doing all the readings and stuff, that I think it has an impact on being South African alone. That, you know, I am South African, and what I go through is what's going to help me, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to adapt to, you know, New Zealand lifestyle and the thousands of cultures that are in this country. But who I am is what's going to get me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it was good, like in 1987, like with the second assignment, I'd come across a lot of literature that, you know, that I didn't know about, you know, with the Māori schooling. So one piece I came across was in 1987 how the Māori Language Act was made, and like it was an official language in New Zealand. So I think, you know, these kind of movements, you know, and like theories and practices really did help Māori people then, you know, well, 7 years after the movement had come, so you could see like within that space it was huge.
And I think without the programs, and I think that's where Kohanga Reo has been fantastic, because it's sort of, you know, opened the doors to create the other programs that are in place, and allowed that flow and effect, and now there is that revival, and you know, that's sort of something to be proud of and stand up and be accounted for as being a Māori student.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And I mean, although Māori education will never be equal, say playing field as English, there's still that step forward. You know, and I think that's the one thing that Māori and all other minorities should be grateful for, is that one step closer to minimising this big impact or this big gap of underachievement. And I think this Kohanga Reo is something that's, you know, is what's right and what's been, you know, a good process. For developing, you know,
it's positive feeding.
It is.
For the next generation.
Absolutely.
So you don't want to be losing anyone's language.
No.
You know what I mean?
Too many of us are doing it. Absolutely.